Hello everyone, this is Arrow, and welcome back to Sundown Moon Up Podfics. Today we'll be continuing Learning to Adapt to the Fall by Supupdog, Chapter 19, Some Talking with Inko, the Bad Mother. Nezu was working on the questions that were going to be used in Inko Midoriya's interrogation. He has some pointed questions about her family before going into the system. Her mother died around when she was 4 or 5 and had no father record besides what his quirk was. He also has some questions that should help her slip some answers about her husband and his business, his employer, and the lot. Those will probably be asked at tomorrow's interrogation, but Nezu also had the blaring obvious question about the bottom hidden floor. Thinking about it still puts his fur on end. On the wall to the left was an operation table that had a very clean air about it. Everything near it was spotless. Shelves were close by, covered, and jars were varying mutant parts in them. Nezu can see eyes, horns, small wings, mutant animal toes, and the likes floating in some of the jars to keep them preserved. He can see a sign was put beside the shelves, but he can't see what it says from where he stands in this nightmarish room. Inko was going to be questioned later today, plus tomorrow and maybe some more after that, and Nezu himself was going to be on the other side of the glass. He was to gauge how Inko acted and see if anything is being told through mannerisms and instincts. Either way, Nezu has to make sure everything is in order for the interrogation. It was finally time to have Inko Midoriya to be interrogated. This was the same room he sat in last time with Shinra Tori on the other side. Today, though, he has a monster in human skin on the other side of the glass. The world twisted this person so far that they thought to torture a poor child, their own pup, was the right thing to do. Inko sat in the seat, silent, looking at the quirk-canceling cuffs on her wrists, chaining her to the table. There was no movement, just a silently plotting thing that was ready to get out and run at a moment's notice. Namamosa just opened the door. Only Inko's eyes moved to look at him, then back down at the cuffs. Is she wondering how she let herself get caught? Will she try and act as someone else for them today? Maybe also a victim to how her husband was, or will she accept it full-heartedly? Sansa was not to be in this interrogation because every time someone with any type of visible mutation, Inko Midoriya became extremely agitated and sometimes violent. The cat officer was on the other side of the door with another officer just in case Inko tried to attack once again. Hello, Miss Midoriya. How are you faring today? Like always, Namamosa was being friendly and open, trying his best to get the other one to let their guard down. Inko kept her eyes on the cuffs as she spoke finally. I'm doing fine, after you made sure none of those animals got near me. Nezu felt his tail twitch when she stated other officers like they were mere animals in her eyes. Those animals that you're talking about are my colleagues, and I'm asking you not to speak of them like that. Inko didn't give a response, so Namamosa just sat down in his chair while he got everything ready. No movement or sound came from Inko while the recording was getting ready. It was now time for the opening questions. Okay, what is your legal name? Midoriya Inko. What was the family name you had before you got married? Taka something. I can't remember it, but you'll have it in your files. Okay, your age, please? I'm 40 years young. Okay, it's time for some harder questions. Namamosa looked her dead in the eyes, while he would be if Inko was actually looking up instead of at her cuffs. Did you know that one Izuku Midoriya had a quirk? Some emotions seemed to fire across her face, but were quickly put behind a mask as she answered. Yes. That word sounded strained, most likely upset that her son had a mutant quirk. Did you ever hurt Izuku physically, emotionally, or mentally? I punished him, yes. Namamosa wrote something down as he re-asked the question because she said that she punished him but not hurting Izuku. The question was now worded differently. Did you ever hurt Izuku in any way, shape, or form than a simple light smack on the head, hand, butt, head, etc.? Yes. Nezu quietly watched as he waited for his time to inform Namamosa to ask certain questions because it will happen sooner or later. Inko has decided to move her stare over to the detective's pen now, as he wrote in his notebook. Did you know of the fireplace hidden door? It was dark, and everything was actually used. It seemed like they used the fireplace recently. Nezu wondered what they could have burned because there wasn't many ashes, or did they simply use the ash to hide the door handle better? He had a small team with him, and they walked the long hallway to the wall to floor door. It was blood. It was bloody and nothing but death, but he had to go in there. Yes. Did you know of the panic button on the second floor, right by the start of the hallway? Yes. We were able to tell that yes, it was a type of panic button, but not where the signal would lead. We would need to press it to find the end signal, and by then the person or people that get it would have left by then. Nezu wanted to throw his phone across the room as he relayed the information. He knows that it would have gone the same way as him, besides getting the general area of where the signal would have ended. He still felt as if it was his fault they couldn't find the end signal. They would be able to get these cultists out faster and get more information on them if they were able to. Did you ever use said panic button to call for help? It's normal for a mother to call for help from a friend when their child is being so unruly. You didn't answer my question, Miss Midoriya. Have you ever used that button to call for help? Yes. Did you know of the secret room on the third floor? Nezu was thinking of what was in front of him, the door that could lead his small group to death if he'd not be careful. The whole time the third floor kept entering his mind. Was it just a quick point to get down the house in secret, or was there actually a room up there? Yes. Did you know of the book and records that were up on the third secret floor? Nezu, sir, I was told that they found books or what looked like records on the third floor. It seems like it did have a secret room like you thought. Yes? Did you ever use those records or books? No. Namamosa's eyes twitched as he wrote some more in his notebook. Must I remind you again, Midoriya Inko, that my quirk is a lie detector and you just told me a lie. I didn't use them in the way that you think I did. Then in what ways did you use them? I was the one who kept the records. I wrote everything I was told to write in those books and all the other things. I was like a secretary. Thinking of all that was in those records and thinking that this woman just stated it as like a secretary job, it made Nezu's fur stand on end. Names, dates, places, times. That was in the first book. Tell of who they were and how animistic they acted in their everyday life. It described what abomination they took after in a mock of God themselves to try and mix humans and animals, how it was a sin to be born something so feral when they were supposed to be in God's image, a human. Do you remember what you usually wrote in them? Notes on saved members or individuals and the ways we saved them. There were so many names, though a wide range of ages. Some of them were deemed able to be saved. Some have detailed notes on how the procedure to save the individuals failed, but helped them learn. How it was a noble loss for their cause of learning how to save more, and in the end their life actually was more than a mangy, animistic human that didn't contribute to human society. How would you save those people in your own eyes? We got rid of what made them animals. Namamosa wrote some more, and it seemed since he had a better look at her face, he could read her emotions better. Nezu was just keeping track of her more bearing emotions, or well, what emotional state she might be in. He will be one He will be one of the lines of defense so that nothing goes too far out of control, and says when they need to stop asking questions. That leads into this next question here. The part of the room ready for surgery at any moment, the other half being splattered in old dried blood on the wall. The secret basement. Right, as soon as you open the door. Did you know it existed and what happened in it? It was a grotesque mockery of pre-quirk era religion. Yes, a mummified person with clear animal mutations was crucified for all to see. Blood from their hands, dried and flaked, parts of their body that weren't mummified properly, part rotting as the smell or death grew heavier around all of them. Did you ever participate in what happened in the secret basement? No, I never wanted to be near those freaks. Jars upon jars full of body parts. All of them vary in size and clarity from how long they were sitting there. Some seemed to need their liquids changed out as the water was too cloudy to see through. Did you know of the body parts that were kept down there? Yes. There was one jar. Did you take away Izuku Midoriya's mutations? No. It was slightly bigger than most of them. Did you allow for Izuku Midoriya's mutations to be taken away? Yes. In the jar were small wings of a baby bird. They would have been about the size of Nezu's paw. There were also bird-like toes and random clumps of flesh floating about. Did you agree with what was happening in the secret basement? It was the only jar that was on a pedestal. Yes. There was even a little spotlight on it to let others see them better, like it was some wonder to behold, for all to admire and see in its crystal clear liquid. Those were all the questions that I needed to ask from you today, Midoriya Inko. Namamosa quickly rose from his chair as Nezu kept his eyes trained on Inko's figure. It has been a very long night for you, and I think it would be time for you to get some rest. It is also morning time now. Inko looked up with indifference as she scanned his body with her eyes. Will you let me sleep in an actual bed, and if not, at least a pillow and blanket? His paws flexed with the need to use them on the person that he refused to look away from. Every breath Nezu took lined up with Inko's as he tried his hardest to think of why. Why would someone with a husband that used to have a visible mutation, she dated him when he had those mutations still? I'm sorry, Miss Midoriya, you are to use what the station provides for you, to use to sleep. It's basically a metal bench with a rock-hard pillow and web-thin blankets. Why a person that was raised by their clearly bird mutation-quirked mother until 6 would... As I stated before, Miss Midoriya, you must use what has been provided for you. Why, Takumi Inko, daughter of Takumi Kumiko. This is bullshit. Why, niece of famous Night Stalker, aka Takumi Yoko, and his wife Takumi Tomi. She is a cousin to Takumi Keigo that Nezu wasn't able to find because the commission bought him at a young age by his own mother after his father was put in jail. Miss Midoriya, you are not getting anything else for your holding cell. You will be brought in for questioning tomorrow at some point. I was just making sure my son didn't end up a mindless, feral animal on the street. Why, the hypocrite of a woman with her own bird instincts that she indulges in quite well, might he add. Miss Midoriya, I ask that you calm down. You are going to be taken back to your holding cells shortly. I should be praised for being the best mother that abomination could have ever gotten. Inko yanked on the cuffs, trying to hold out a hand to Namamosa, clear signs of her trying to use her quirk and not being able to because of the cuffs. Why does this person that would, by all means, understand mutants and the hardships they go through? I should be let go so I can rip off those things from my poor baby's back. He doesn't need them to be human. Why is she one of the main members of the Creature Rejection Clan, or the CRC? Sansa, get some officers in here so they can escort Inca Midoriya back to her holding cell. No, you better keep that dirty, flea-ridden street rat away from me. Nezu might never understand unless Inca Midoriya told that story herself. He started to put all the things together as the sounds of Inco's cursing got louder. He needs to do more investigating into both sides of the Midoriya family and the CRC in general. Nezu looked at his notes and started to make sure the Midoriya family tree was right and the details he got were right. Inca Midoriya, previously known as Inko Takami, married in to Hizushi Midoriya. She took his last name and also married him after he had surgery done on his neck, shoulders, plus some parts of his chest and back. Her mother, Takami Kumiko, had to give her up after not having any more money to provide for both of them. The orphanage that took Inko Takami allowed for her mother to come in at any time to help and play with the children. Kumiko was known from the children as a mother they might never have, and the orphanage workers as a godsend when they couldn't hire any more employees. She was a great woman that helped anyone she could. Kumiko's brother, Takami Yuko, was known as the Night Stalker, going around stalking both men and women for not what one would think. Takami Yoko, the Night Stalker, killed rapists, pedophiles, and actual stalkers at any turn he could get. When he was arrested, he stated he was just listening to his instincts to keep the pest out of his territory. He also said he likes the thrill of the hunt that one couldn't get in the heart of the city. Hunting for one's prey in the wild is the best, but bastards in concrete mazes are just as good too. Was a direct quote from the man himself. He'd made sure victims got home safely for weeks after their attacks. Why is that on record? Police would get messages from the victims about feeling watched and seeing someone out of the corner of their eye. Police would send cars their way, but they never found anything. The pair of siblings that were close in age split off at a young age because of their parents divorcing, the mother taking the daughter and father taking the son. Yoko married at a young age, being involved with gangs and such until he was strong enough to go on his own. His wife and him never really tried for kids because his wife never wanted any. At one point, though, they did get pregnant and had the son named Takami Keigo, a little boy with red wings. Nezu tried to track where he went, but after it showed the commission's handiwork all over his file, Nezu can tell who might be Takami Keigo. Yoko worked odd jobs throughout the day and made sure to cross-team many different gangs and streets a week, selling them things and getting things from the other, it being info or weapons or maybe drugs. He wasn't really home at times for his son and wife. He admitted to regretting it after he found out how his son was treated at home. His wife made it clear she never wanted kids, but one would think she would take care of whichever one she did have. She didn't. Tomi neglected and ignored her son on a daily basis. Yoko would lash out at her as months turned to years, and the housework slowly went down the drain. The trash and dishes are piling up, and Yoko needs to do more jobs because Tomi refuses to work because she was taking care of his son. Yoko did try his best not to let his son see his anger, but that was never the case. He did give the boy as much love as he could, but the random anger for his kid's mother would hurt their relationship until he was finally taken away. Keigo tried to make sure his father stayed with him, but nothing worked, and Tomi just watched as the only thing keeping money on the table was put into a cop car. His sister and mother, to our current Inca Midoriya, wasn't doing any better. She had a pleasant childhood, besides people discriminating against her. Everyone mostly just treated her like a street bird when she was out and about, people giving her food because they thought she was homeless. When Kumiko finally left her home to go off on her own, Many didn't want to hire her for her looks. With having more of a beak than a nose and mouth, plenty of feathers and bird-type legs, only places in bad neighborhoods would hire her, or small diners that doesn't even bring up housing. Many thought that Kumiko would trash their apartments with her nesting habits and other bird-type instincts that she would have. This leaving bad apartments or just living in the red light district, Kumiko was really set up to fail. She tried her best to keep any upbeat attitude for many years, going from working one job to two, and then to also doing side jobs in her free time. Kumiko worked day and night and just try and get into a better living space. She helped anywhere she could and was well liked by many living near her. This peace couldn't last long, though. One night where Kumiko finally got completely off and decided to go out, she found herself falling hard for someone. It ended the next day, but that one night was all she needed to end up pregnant. Unlike her brother, who was in his late 30s or early 40s when he had his kid, Kumiko was in her early 20s. The quirk of her one-night stand was an emotional-based quirk. That was all that was known. Kumiko's quirk could pull anything as light as a feather close to her. The doctor that wrote her quirk down said that it was just the starting point, and she would be able to pull more to her with practice. She did too when she slowly got older and pulled things like staplers and somewhat big sacks of paper to her. She didn't have money to throw around or to just use for pleasantries. How would she afford a child? She refused to get rid of it. She couldn't even think of that as an option. Kumiko saved up the best she could, making sure her employers knew that she was carrying. She knew where to get things cheap and make sure that everything was as cheap as she could get it. After Inko was finally born, Kumiko learned just how hard it was to actually raise a baby when one doesn't have basically any money or free time. One of her bosses allowed her to have her baby with her while she worked, but the second one didn't allow it. Kumiko was able to get some people that lived near her to watch her baby when she was at her second job. After all the saved up money finally ran out, Kumiko lost her second job and had basically no money for food for her. She had to give up her child to an orphanage where they were understanding and allowed her to help out there so she could be with her child more often. Things just seemed to get worse with her other job giving her less hours and almost no odd jobs being available. At one point, Kumiko lost her only home and she sold everything that had any value so she could have some type of money on the street. At least people seemed to still give her food at random like when she was young. She still went to the orphanage any time that she was available or whenever she was really free. Living on the street made it harder for Nezu to get more information on her, but one thing that stood out was the police reports. Sometimes she got in trouble for stealing food or other essentials. The officers never really did anything because it was just small offenses and it was always essentials. The last resort was what struck Nezu's interest. It was a hate crime report. Kumiko was involved and it didn't end well. She was targeted, plus plenty of others with mutations, and defended anyone near her to the best of her ability. This selfless act left her with multiple stab wounds and ended up dead when she was finally in her hospital room. After spending many years on the streets without a bed, she was able to pass away with the normal comfort that the lucky have. She left this world when Inko was around 5 or 6 and still in the system. And in the system, Inko stayed until she finally aged out. She had no idea who her family was and probably had hazy memories of a mother that was there, but they were also there for the other kids. Was that her mother, or just a caretaker that wasn't around as much? Inko went through her life at one point. It started to get increasingly hard to follow her movements. She lived a normal life and fell for Hizushi. He still had his mutations. Then there was a record of their marriage and then son's birth. It was dark and stunk of someone in high power, hiding someone in their past, or well, only part of their life. That was Inko's side of the family. Now Nezu needed to get down all of Hizushi's side of the family. Hizushi's life seemed to be very chaotic, and he seemed to have a lot of family members. He has 3 siblings, a mother and a father, and he also has his grandparents from both sides until he was about 8. His parents didn't have any mutations, but his grandparents on both sides did. One set had some mental quirks with small lizard and scaly type mutations, and the other side had draconic mutations with fire quirks. His siblings all had some type of mutations, while his parents were mostly mutation-free. Not wanting to make this too long, as Nezu really just wants to get sleep, he'll sum up this family as quickly as he could. He can put in more detailed version after he finally gets some sleep, and then he can help with the second part of Inko's interrogation. The twins of Hizushi's family had lizard mutations with heat resistance. One of the twins could resist heat so well that they couldn't find the limit of it. The other could easily resist heats as high as 2,800 Fahrenheit. That twin went into baking and cooking, if he was correct. The one with no found limit to their resistance became a firefighter. The last sibling had a heavy dragon mutation, their neck longer and jaw bigger. Their quirk was just dragon, as they resembled about a 7-foot dragon that stood on 2 legs. There was a resistance to heat, but it was because of their dragon scales. One of Hizushi's parents had a mental quirk that affected how people hear their voice. The other obviously had a fire quirk, with both of them mixing quite well in Hizushi to give him fire breath, that used to be named Dragon's Breath. Hizushi seemed to be a troubled kid that always got into fights and never listened. Growing up looking to be hard as everyone looked at his older siblings and thought he needed to be like them. When he was a teen, he did get in some light legal trouble, as a cop had to take him in the precinct because of a fight. It seemed he fought with some kind of villain, but never used his quirk, so they couldn't get him with a vigilante charge. He was never close to his older siblings, and after being able to move out, Hizushi took it and moved far, far away. He never kept in contact with them, and he was only ever contacted when they passed away. Hizushi got into a very good job after he got his act together. Slowly through his years, he got into the highest position he could probably get, an assistant CEO at a big company. He was very close to one that owned the company and the CEO. There was something about a surgery being done on his sink, getting skin grafts and something else for where his scales were. After how long they had been dating, Inko and Hizushi, they got married. It seemed like the owner of the company paid for the whole thing. That is also the person Nezu thinks is hiding both of Inko's and Hizushi's lives, only part of it, but still hiding it. Just like in Inko's history, Hizushi is shown to be getting plenty of job promotions and pay raises, being at office parties, but all of his life seems to be just blank now besides the birth of Izuku. After Izuku is born, many co-workers have pictures of Izuku because Hizushi showed his son to everyone. In every picture, though, there are no mutations in sight. They did it before anyone saw him. Nezu looks down at all the information he has. Tomi is still alive, but never even met her niece-in-law, aka Inko. That's a lost cause. Keigo was in the commission and probably turned into a hero we all know and love. That means he doesn't know them at all either. Everything is just neatly wrapped up by someone with money and power. They could have paid the commission or maybe have traces in the commission itself. Nezu looks at all the family information he has, as every one of Hizushi's siblings are dead and gone. This could have been accidents or planned, but Hizushi can't be directly connected to any of it because of work and never being in contact with any of them. He also can't just accuse big CEOs and companies of being in the CRC because it was such a small cult to begin with. Not many even know it exists. It was around for a long time because it was made during the Quirk Wars. People look at others who have mutations as lesser and say they are now not human. It reminds him of the very old cult that existed prominently in the USA. I think y'all can guess which one that is. I'm not gonna say it. They seem to start out most likely like the blank, but now it seems they are looking at all the mutants as something to be cured, or if they can't, they just get rid of them completely. The flashing lights of his phone pulls him away from his thoughts. Nezu needs to be up in about 4 hours, so it's time to sleep. He started closing up his notes and making sure everything was in order. It's almost 6 p.m. He didn't get a wink of sleep since he started getting the raid of the Midoriyas ready, so 2 days of no sleep? Nezu goes over to his bed, gets in, and starts to relax. That's when he noticed that he had some texts from Izuku, Grandpup, and Zashi, his pup. Taking a quick look at what was sent to him made Nezu dissolve into cackles. Shota, his first pup, had finally gotten his last bit of healing, but not enough to knock him out. This means that someone was finally able to record his pup was being woozy and completely out of it. It showed his pup calling his new pack member a baby and saying he will always be a baby. It's all in good fun, and it's kind of true to how their pack acts. If you are the youngest, you are always the youngest no matter what. Since Shota was so out of it though, he forgot about Izuku, so he was spared the embarrassment. This time around. Nezu laid back down so he could finally go to sleep. It was nice to watch that after dealing with so many dark topics for days. His pack was safe and happy. Nezu was actually able to get some sleep for the night. Here are some endnotes memes. Sashi. I am moving away. His family. Okay, at least stay in touch. Sashi later down the road getting them all murdered. I stayed in touch enough to know when they die. Inko. I was raised in the system. Me. You did have a mother. Inko. No, I didn't. Me. Yes, you did. Inko. No, I know I didn't. Nezu. I have the paper right here. Rest would spoil some part for the next chap, so no. Nezu. I am doing my job watching her. Inko being her awful self. Nezu. I have a button to press for stopping everything and to ask certain questions, and I have a notebook to write in. Inko at the end slowly getting worse. Nezu. My job. Think of my job. Inko just starts to spout by all shit. Nezu. Humans will never make sense to me, and I wish they never will. Why did you hurt my grandpup? Your own flesh and blood? Me. Inko. Me staring at the writing. Not yet. Nezu. Nezu looking up from his Mito family tree info. Yes. Me. I'm writing you today. Nezu. That means I get to talk all I want and be over the top. Plus, I'll most likely be able to take over how the chapter flows this time around because I'll only need to worry about the interrogation, right? Me. Nezu. Right? Me. I'm sorry, it's easier to control you when I fuck with your emotions, man. Nezu. Can't I just have one normal chapter without so much happening and needing my attention? Me. Probably not, so I can control the story better, or else you'll just derail it to all hell. Inko. I am here. Nezu just fucking hissing. Not Namamosa just trying to do his job. Sansa outside, waiting to be in there, but then he will mess everything up. Inko. I only breathed. Namamosa. You did more than that. Inko. Can I have more sleepy things? Namamosa. No. Inko. Why not? Now. Because. Inko. This is inhumane. Now. No, it is not. Inko. This is all your fault. Namamosa. Sure is. Inko. Why did you ruin what I was doing to my baby? Would be free of those things. Namamosa. That's definitely what would have happened. Nezu in the other room, slightly losing it. Oh, how I want to rip her apart more. I should have hit her harder when I was subduing her. Would have made me feel much better. Kumiko, being a mutant with the biggest heart, gets foregoing in the family line. Izuku being born with bird mutations and trying his best to save everyone. Kumiko looking down at her grandchild with tears in her eyes. You can do it. You can, little one, even if they took them away from you. Izuku getting his wings back. Kumiko sobbing. You finally whole, little one. It's your distant cousin. Stay with your flock, little one. All right, everyone. That is the end for chapter 19. That was a lot with her backstory. I think this is near where I left off when I was last reading this. But Inko's backstory is wild. Like, my goodness. I really want to know why she hates mutations that much. I mean, because she doesn't know about her mother. So, was it the cult? Like, when did she meet the cult? Well, anyway, thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you all soon.